We have finished all but one layer of the notes feature, and that's the presentation layer. Because of all the safety measures we have previously put in place, not a single invalid value will slip through, and in the case of a failure which is out of our control, we will let the user know exactly what went wrong. Let's now focus on the notes overview page, shall we? Hello, welcome to ResoCoder, where you're getting prepared for real app development so that you will get freelance clients or a job and be confident about the apps you build. So subscribe and hit the bell to join us in our quest for becoming in-demand Flutter developers. We're going to start building the presentation layer of the app, more specifically the presentation layer for the notes feature. And as I have said, we're going to start off with building the notes overview page, which you can currently see as it will look finished in the app which I have prepared beforehand. So it will display the notes in cards, it will show the to-dos in those cards, and over time, in next episodes, we are also going to build out the functionality that you can edit the notes when you click on a card. This is going to be called a note form page. And also you'll be able to create new notes. This is also a note form page, but it's for a blank new note. But for now, let's just focus on this page, in particular, the notes overview page. Now, as you can see, inside the splash page, which is put into action every time the app starts at first, we are listening to the auth state of our app. And if the user is unauthenticated, we want that user to be, of course, authenticated. That's how our app is designed. So we put that user to the sign in page. However, if the user is already authenticated, then instead of just printing I am authenticated, it would be great to put that user to the notes overview page, which we are about to build in this part. So what are we going to do? Well, of course, we're going to also use the extended navigator and push replacement named routes notes overview page. For that, however, we first need to build that page and also set up the route inside the router.dart for the to be built notes overview page. There's one issue though, and that is that the current router structure is outdated because the auto route library which we are using has been updated to a new version. So in order not to write legacy code, which is of no real use, we're going to hop into pubspec.yaml and we're just going to update the version of autoroute right here. We're going to update it to 0.6.1 autoroute, and we are also going to update the autoroute generator to 0.6.0 like that. And I know that there are also other libraries which are outdated as of now. For example, Freest has a new version, and also Block has a new version, right? There is the 5.0.1. However, we're not going to really update the other libraries just yet. We're going to do that later on. For now, let's just update the autoroute package and call it a day when it comes to updating pubspec.yaml. So now that it's updated, our code broke a bit. You can see that we have an error over here. There is no longer any initial annotation. And actually, the whole structure of this router is just wrong right now. So instead of defining routes as fields in the router class for the autoroute package to then generate the code from, now what we should do is instead define a routes list, which is a list of autoroute just a regular list. And in the new version of our route, routes are specified like this: material auto routes, or material page route, of course. No. Material route. And now we specify the page. So again, we want it to be a splash page, just like before. It's just written differently, different syntax. And we want it to be initial. So initial is true. So the concepts are still the same, just the syntax changed. And then another page will be the sign in page, like that. And now we can delete the fields from the router class itself and run the code generation. So let's run our favorite command, flutter pub run build run watch delete conflicting outputs. And once that's done, we're going to basically have the same thing generated for us, but it's just written differently. There are also some nifty changes added to the auto route package, which we are, however, not going to use in this tutorial series. But it's getting cooler and cooler by every update. Anyway, now that we have that, we can move forward to create the notes overview page, which is of course going to live in the notes feature, right? So let's open up the sidebar, and inside, of course, presentation layer, we want to go to the notes feature. And just like we have created a sub feature for note form, we're also going to create a sub feature, which means a subfolder in this case also, for notes overview. And inside of there, we're going to create a new file, which is going to be called notes overview page. .dart. And inside of there, we're for now just going to create a simple stateless widget. Flutter stateless widget, or maybe it should be stateful. Let's just leave it stateless for now. So notes overview page. Let's import stateless widget from material.dart. And for good measure, let's just make it have a scaffold inside of there, because it's after all a page widget. And usually, at least when it comes to some default material looking apps, then you basically always want to have a scaffold in there when we are talking about a whole page. And something's missing here. Nothing's missing. We just need to provide const because of the compiler complaining for now. All right, so now that we have the notes overview page, we need to hook it up so that we can navigate to it from the splash page whenever the user is already authenticated. So inside the router, we're going to create yet another material route, which is going to navigate to or refer to notes overview page. All right, and just like that, we have notes overview page created. And because we are running the build command continuously, the code has been generated. So now what we can do is jump to the splash page and, well, instead of printing I am authenticated, we are going to say extended navigator. Well, we can just copy the code from the unauthenticated case, paste it over here, and instead of pushing replacement named of sign-in page, we're gonna do so of notes overview page, just like that. And now it would be a good time to actually check if everything works, right? So we're going to build the app, Currently, I think that I am not authenticated, so we should hop into the sign in page. And then once we sign in, we should actually move over to the notes overview page, which actually brings me to another change that we should probably make, if I'm not mistaken. And that is that from the sign in form, we should also navigate to the notes overview page whenever the user successfully signs in, right? So let's just copy this bit of code, which we have just written, of pushing replacement named of notes overview page. Copy that. And let's take a look at the sign in form right here, sign in form. And surely we should navigate from over here, from the block consumer. So what are we doing here? Well, we have a listener saying that if state.auth failure or success option is none, then we don't want to do anything, because basically nothing has happened. No action has been yet taken by the user to either sign in or not. But if there is something coming in, that's signified by the either. This either can either, of course, signify successful sign-in or unsuccessful sign-in. In the case of a failure, we display a proper failure message in a snack bar, flash bar, and then this case is what we are interested in. This is the successful sign-in case. So whenever the user is signed in successfully, as signified by this to-do, of course, we want to navigate to the logical next page. In this case, that is the notes overview page, where we want to take every user who is signed in. That's basically our home page, right? This is our home page, so to say. So what we want to do is just say extended navigator of push replacement named navigate, like that. Let's import all routes and also the routes .gr.dar, all right. And this would be it, right? We are going to then navigate to the notes overview page. Well, kinda, that would be it, but we also want to change the authentication state of our app, which is held inside the auth block, because this sign-in form page only communicates with the sign-in form block. It does not communicate with the auth block. And sign-in form block, if we take a look, only facilitates events like email changed, password changed, register, and so on, but it does not change the state of the actual auth block. The auth block is responsible for knowing whether or not the user is authenticated or unauthenticated or authenticated, right? So in order to change the state of the auth block, we need to push the auth check requested event right after the user has signed in. And since we know that the sign-in was successful, of course, the state will be changed to authenticated. We just don't have any direct control because of the design of this block. We don't have any direct control to change the state to authenticated or unauthenticated, but we have the indirect control of requesting an auth check. And in this case, it's always going to result in the state being authenticated. So let's do just that. Hopefully I did not confuse you, but you know, we can have just this one event. We don't have any other events, so that's why we're going to use this auth check requested event as I have explained. So in the sign-in form .dart, after navigating, we're also going to say context .block. We want to get the auth block, which is present throughout our whole app. And we're going to say add, and we want to add event auth event dot auth check requested, like that. And with this done, once the user signs in, he's gonna be taken to the notes overview page also, and the state of the authentication will also change to authenticated. So now is a good time to build the app, right? We're going to hit F5 and wait for the app to be built. Let's take a look at the output. If we could somehow, hopefully, debug console probably. Let's hide this thing because the space is just taken up by the emulator, which is on the side, for good reason, because this is a UI building part. But we can see that it doesn't work. We cannot build the app, and it says the failure occurred while executing blah blah blah. The number of method references in index file cannot exceed 64,000. So this is an error which is very close to heart to many Android developers. And thankfully, we can solve it very easily just by going to Android, then app, and build.gradle. And there are also some elaborate ways how to make it work with the support library or with Android X library, I think, as they are now called. But there is the simplest way, which is just to change the minimum SDK version to 21. And at this point, I mean, people who are still running Android KitKat, they are not really the ones who are going to be installing new apps from Play Store. Those people who run KitKat, they, I don't know what they're doing, but we have Android 10 already, or maybe I don't even know what we have, but surely Android KitKat people are not the ones who you should be focusing on. So changing it to Lollipop like this is a perfectly viable option, and you're going to get rid of the headache of the 64K method reference limit in a DEX file. So just like that, once we have changed the minimum SDK version, we can try building the app again. So let's hit F5 again, and this time it should actually build. And also, you can always check the code out from the link in the video description. If I have gone just too fast for you, you can always check it out at your own pace. All right, and just like that, you can see that we are indeed in the sign-in page and the build has worked without any method reference limit. Let's just sign in with Google really quickly. And yeah, so here we go. We are now in a blank looking page. And of course, this is the notes overview page. We can prove it probably in the easiest way by going to the notes overview page and just setting the scaffold's background color to be color dot, I don't know, amber. And sure enough, it has changed, so we know that we are on the correct page. That's cool. Before anything else, let's quickly build out the UI of the notes overview page, at least the core UI like the app bar and so on. And then we can move on to what we are going to provide, which blocks are going to be present in the notes overview page. So let's start off with the app bar. I think that's the first thing which I do in any kind of a scaffold which has an app bar. So let's say app bar, and we want to give it a title. Since we are not really dealing with internationalization and translating the app, we're just going to again provide hard-coded text, which is going to say notes. All right. And just like that, because we have set up our theme already, we have a nice green app bar at the top saying notes. Then we want to have a way for the user to sign out of the app. And this is going to be done with a leading icon on, or the icon button, I should say, on the app bar. So let's say icon button. and this needs to hold an icon, which is going to be taken from icons exit to app, which looks something like this, right? This is going to be the sign out icon button, and whenever this is pressed, we just want to say context dot block to get the block, which we cannot do currently, sadly, because extensions are not auto imported yet. So let's just do a little trick here. We are going to say block provider. Now this has imported Flutter block automatically. We can get rid of block provider and use the context.block extension requesting auth block, because this is where the const auth event that signed out is held. So we're going to add this signed out event whenever the icon button, this one, is pressed. All right. Of course, currently this doesn't do anything because we are not performing any action. We are not navigating on this sign out state change and even incoming. We're going to handle that later on in this part. For now, let's focus on the other visible parts of the UI. So the next thing that we want to have here in the app bar is a thing which I call uncompleted switch. Let's take a look at it in the finished app. So as you can see, here is this little button again, and when I press it, it's only going to show the tasks, the nodes, which have at least one uncompleted to do, right? When I press it again, then it's also going to show nodes which have all of their to-dos already completed. So we're not going to build out the functionality of this uncompleted switch just yet. We're just going to place this as a simple dummy placeholder icon button over here. So let's do just that. We are going to add a actions, which is a list of widgets, and we are just going to have one action, which is going to be later on the uncompleted switch. But for now, it's just going to be a simple dummy icon button placeholder, holding an icon from icons, I know, and let's say check box, indeterminate checkbox, like that, and unpressed will be just empty for now. Right, cool. So we can press it. Of course, when we come back to our app, which we are currently building, we can press it, but it doesn't do anything just yet, but it's there and it's looking sharp, which is nice. Now, the next thing which we should implement here is the floating action button. This is of course outside of app bar, and the floating action button will be responsible for adding new nodes, or more precisely to navigating to a blank new node form page. So it's going to have unpressed, where we should navigate to the node form page. Of course, we currently don't have that kind of a page just yet. So I'm just going to put a to-do here, navigate to node form page. All right. And we also want to change the icon. So child of the floating action button will be icon, icons.add, not ADB, but add. Cool. And actually, I think that the color of this button is a little bit off, isn't it? Yeah, here in the finished app, it's a bit darker. I think this is indigo color. So let's just change that to also be darker over here. Let's go to presentation, core, app widget.dart. And again, you can get the code from the link in the video description as always. And here where we are setting the theme data, We are also going to set floating action button theme, and we're going to set that the background color should be actually not indigo but colors blue 900. All right, and that's about it. So we have just changed the floating action button theme. Now we can come back, and that's it for the floating action button. And for the visible part of the Notes overview page UI, the body of this Notes overview page will actually be held inside its own file in its own widget, so that we don't just pollute this Notes overview page code with too much nesting, because as you know, nesting in Flutter's UI can get pretty crazy over time. So that's why you should break out really small, of course within reason, small widgets. So now that we have that, we can focus on the invisible parts of the Notes overview page, which of course in our case are going to be the blocks, the omnipresent blocks that we have everywhere. For the Notes overview page, we have actually created a bunch of blocks which we need to work with, right? If we take a look at the application layer, the Notes feature, we have Node Actor, Node Form, Node Watcher. So what are we going to do with them? Well, of course, we first need to provide the appropriate blocks down to this page. So, and actually to its descendant widgets also, of course. So we're going to wrap the scaffold with a widget, and at first it's going to be a multi-block provider. This multi-block provider does not want to work, probably because we need to just provide the providers list. Cool. And of course now we have an error which we should fix. The first provider which we are going to provide here is going to be the Node Watcher block. This, as the name says, is responsible for watching the nodes from Firestore. So let's just say block provider, Nodes Watcher block, create. We wanna create the Node Watcher block by getting it from getIt, which we are using in conjunction with the injectable package. This is going to make sure that all of the dependencies are properly injected into the Node Watcher block. Node Watcher block is the type parameter for getIt. Cool. All right, and as soon as we actually create this block, we also want to add a first event to it, which is going to be Node Watcher events watch all started, because by default, when the Nodes overview page is first displayed, we're going to watch all nodes, and then only when the user chooses so, once he presses this uncompleted switch, then we're going to change to watching only the uncompleted nodes. All right, so this is it for the first block which we should provide down the widget tree in the Nodes overview page. But we also have another block which we want to provide here, and that is the Node Actor block. So let's change to Node Actor block. And this is not going to have any default event added to it. The Node Actor block is responsible for adding new nodes, and actually, no, not adding, just deleting, right? Yeah, just deleting nodes. Adding nodes actually happens in the Node Form block, so pardon me for that mishap. Node Actor block is just responsible for deleting a node, which is going to actually happen, if I can show you, by long pressing on a node, and then we can delete it, right? So let's come back to the app which we are implementing right now. And in addition to providing the blocks, we should also have the possibility to listen to blocks. So to which blocks we should listen over here to perform some actions which are not really related to building the UI, but some actions which are basically side effects, we could say, when it comes to at least building the UI, like navigating or showing snack bars and so on. Well, firstly, let's think about how we are going to handle the signed out event when it comes to the auth block. Well, when the signed out event comes in, the unauthenticated state is emitted from the auth block, and we should somehow handle it. And there is no better place to handle a state change than close to the place where the event causing that state change has been added to the block. So we want to keep close proximity of the event and state handling, because that just makes things simpler in many cases. Therefore, we're going to handle the unauthenticated state right over here in the notes overview page, and we're going to make sure to navigate to the sign-in page again for the user to authenticate, because again, by the design of our app, unauthenticated users just cannot use our app. They need to be authenticated at all times. So we're going to wrap the scaffold in yet another widget. This is going to be the multi-block listener. And listeners are going to be a list. At first, the block listener will be just one of auth block, of auth state, of course. And the listener is going to be specified. Context state is provided to us. Cool. So what do we want to do here? Well, we are listening to the auth state, which is our favorite union type from Freest. So we can say state. And now what? Well, we are only interested in handling the unauthenticated state, because this is what we are doing. We are signing out, which produces unauthenticated state. We are not really worried about the authenticated state, so we can just ignore it. And for ignoring a particular union case, we can use the maybe map function on the state. We need to implement or else, which in this case, we're just going to let it pass. And what we are interested in is the unauthenticated state, which we're going to handle accordingly. In our case, that is saying extended navigator. We can say off context, for example, and push replacement named. And we are going to say routes dot sign in page once we import routes. Cool. All right, so this is how it looks like. Again, you can get the code from the link in the video description. And now, whenever we sign out, we are going to arrive at the sign-in page. So let's actually test it out manually. Sign out, and sure enough, we are right here. Sign back in. Cool. And we're back. Sign out. Awesome. It really works. How surprising, right? At the beginning of this part, I have said that we are, of course, building a bulletproof app, which is not going to let any errors pass through it. And it's also going to inform users very specifically about what had gone wrong if just something doesn't work out. And for this reason, we are going to add another block listener to our multi-block listener, which is going to listen to the node actor block. So let's do just that. Block listener, nodes actor block, node actor state, and the listener will basically be used only to show snag bars or flush bars. So let's do just that whenever a failure occurs. So again, there are multiple states when it comes to node actor state. There is the initial, action in progress, delete failure, delete success. But from the listener, we are only interested in doing some action whenever the delete failure comes from the listened block, whenever the delete failure is emitted from the block, should I say. So we're going to say, again, maybe map, not map, but maybe map, cool. We're going to ignore everything else except for the delete failure state, which will grant us a state. And this state is of type delete failure. And what we want to do from over here is to just say flush bar, actually flush bar helper, right? Because we want to make things easier for us. Flush bar helper just provides helper constructors, I guess, or helper factories maybe, for creating quick snag bars. So we're going to say create error. The duration will be 5 seconds. Seconds 5. Awesome. The message of the flush bar will be gotten by mapping over the node failure, which we can get from the state. So state has one field holding node failure, which is itself a union. The state is a union containing multiple cases, and also the node failure is in itself a union, which can be either unexpected node failure, insufficient permissions, or unable to update. So let's jump back in, and we're going to say node failure map. And for every single union case, we want to return a string of some sorts. So for unexpected, we are going to return something like unexpected error occurred while deleting a node. Please contact support, something like that. I'm actually not going to bore you with writing that out, so I'm just going to copy it over here. Cool. Unexpected error occurred while deleting. Please contact support. Now, insufficient permissions, well, that just means that the user doesn't have sufficient permissions given by the security rules over at the Firebase side. So we should probably inform the user about the thing that happened. So insufficient permissions will be returned from the mapping whenever insufficient permission failure is present. And unable to update is impossible to happen in this case because we are not updating a node, we are deleting a node. So the unable to update thing should never happen actually. So we're going to say impossible error. This should actually really never happen. We just handle it because we can. We could also just ignore it and call it a day, but let's just handle it for the sake of it. And also we mustn't forget to call show on the flush bar to actually show it, right? Awesome, so that's it for this part in which we have built the skeleton of the nodes overview page. We have also gone into navigation a bit. We have updated the auto route version and updated the code that goes together with it. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next parts, and be sure to subscribe to this channel and also join the notification squad by hitting the bell button if you don't want to miss more tutorials like this, because here on ResoCoder I am determined to provide you with the best tutorials and resources so that you will become an in-demand Flutter developer. And if you are serious about becoming a great Flutter developer who can build real apps for clients or at a job, go to flutter.education, link is also in the video description by the way, to get the top curated Flutter news and resources aimed at improving your app development career. Over there you can also subscribe to my mailing list to get the best Flutter resources delivered weekly right into your inbox. Again, if you want to go through this tutorial at your own pace, you can get the code from the link in the video description. If this video helped you with everything that we did, give it a like and also share it with other developers who are surely gonna find it beneficial too. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, and see you in the next video.